Hey everybody, it's Q4, and if you're like pretty much everybody else, you're planning for what you're going to do in 2017. And at the base of all of our businesses is our team, whether that's a buyer's agent, a listing agent, or just an ISA or a VA. And look, I got to tell you, if you're doing work that you can outsource to an ISA, like setting appointments, come on. Go find somebody and leverage your time. That's how you're going to grow. Look, I got to tell you, everybody knows we need great talent. Everybody knows they need good talent on their team. But the problem is, how do you find it? How do you find those people? How do you do it effectively from a time perspective? I just met these guys, Wise Hire. These guys will help you grow. Here's what they'll do. Let's say you need an ISA, Wise Hire will, number one, help you craft your job ad. I guarantee you they've written thousands more than you have. Then they'll do the work. They'll post it on all the big job boards. Indeed, ZipRecruiter, you know the places. And here's the magic. As candidates apply, Wise Hire automatically administers the DISC assessment. Okay, that's the personality profile. They'll tell you how close this guy's or girl's personality is to the job that you just posted. So look, if you're serious about growing your business, go check out a couple of great resources from WiseHire. Go to the site, get their free ebook. It's going to teach you everything you know about hiring in real estate. You can go to wisehire.com/super. That's WIZE hire.com/super. Get your own free profile to learn your personal strengths and weaknesses. And most importantly, if you need to make some hires, register for Wise Hire. Start making smarter hiring decisions today. Welcome to Super Agents Live. This is the one place where you can come and hear the most successful people in real estate. You'll hear how these super agents built their businesses, how they stay productive, and how they stay motivated. Who am I? My name's Toby Salgado, and I made my first million in real estate. And I'm your host for the next 30 minutes while we talk to yet another amazing real estate entrepreneur. Stay tuned.
Let's go! Yeah!
What's up? Hey. Today, this is the first podcast of 2017. I'm excited to do it. Now, today's episode is a very special episode. Look, a lot of people, I get emails all the time. Hey, can bring me on your show. I get, agents saying, hey, my client, would you consider having him on the show? I'll look at the bios. Sometimes I say yes, sometimes I say no. But a lot of times I'll go, sure, yeah, I'll put something on tape. And if it's good, I'll release it. Now, this guy, I had no idea who he was. This guy is a massive superstar. He's been on Dr. Phil. The guy's been, Tom Cruise played him in a movie, Magnolia, which I talked about in the other intro. And every now and again, right? Every now and again on this show, I feel like we come up with some magic. I feel like we uncover something that is just like, wow. And today's episode, for me, I felt that way. This guy is a persuasion expert. And throughout this conversation, he shares with me and you how to look, you gotta listen to this whole thing all the way through, and you probably want to listen to this one twice. But overall, he explains how, and I've heard everybody from Tony, I've heard everybody. I've never heard a human being explain these persuasion techniques in this way. And overall, he's shows us how to use language and phrasing to build trust and to give people positive feelings, and literally we get into this thing super quick. And the first thing he talks about is, or shares, he says, I'm going to show you how to insert embedded commands in your language. And he goes on to share how we use commands and suggestions in our normal conversations just by using certain phrasing. So I did this one a while back, 6 weeks ago maybe, and I knew it was a special one. I believed in my bones it was a special one. So I wanted to release it. I want to be careful about release, and I got to tell you, even before I uploaded it into the software today, I was like, is this the right time? Is this the right time? I don't know. And I almost, guys, feel poorer because this episode is not in my library. It's not my catalog. I'm not holding this piece of gold back ready to unleash it at any time. So I really, really, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Hey, before we get to the content, I just got to tell you, I've teased this one out a little bit. We release a new product every year, right? We release a new product every year. So the latest product that we are releasing, and it's out there. We've got some traffic to it. People have bought it. It's called Copy and Send. You guys are most likely doing a terrible job mining your database. And why don't you send emails to your database? Well, or you send email spotty. Most of the time it's because you're like, hey, Toby, I'm not a good writer. Hey, Toby, I don't know what to say. So we are copywriters all the way through 2016. So we spent a year developing the content on this. So we have 300 and something overall completely templated emails. And we've made it super easy. If you want to buy one to check it out, you can buy one. If you want to buy a pack of 3, you can buy a pack of 3. But what we want you to do, we want you to subscribe to it. And for $12 a month, you get access to every single 301. Literally, your copywriting days are over for $12 a month. So go check it out, copyandsend.com. And we are going. This Copy and Send site is going to be sort of our pillar here. We're going to be adding a script section. We're going to be adding a social media section. So I'm really excited about what this thing will evolve to and grow to over the next 12 months. Hey, let's get to it real quick. SuperAgentsLive.com. The show notes will be there. You can follow me on Twitter at SuperAgentsLive. But look, let's just get to it. And I really, really, guys, if you got something out of this, I want you to do 2 things. Send the guest an email and thank him for it. And send me an email and share with me something you got out of it. All right, let's get to it. Today on the show, we're doing something a little bit different. Today's guest is a master hypnotist, transformational healer. I almost couldn't even say that. Change worker. And today's guest, this guy has been on radio, TV, print. He's done everything. And he was the real life inspiration for Tom Cruise's character in the movie Magnolia. I'm thrilled to welcome Ross Jeffries. Ross, thanks for taking the time, man.
Thank you. It's my honor and pleasure to be addressing your audience. And my one comment about Tom Cruise playing me in the movie, I think he did a great job, only he's really short. He's 5'3", I'm 6'2". But other than that, he did a fabulous job.
Is he really that short? I knew he was a short guy. 5'3"?
He's a tiny guy.
Wow.
He's about 5'3", 5'4".
You know what? You know who else is small is like Sylvester Stallone. That guy's little too.
As a matter of fact, when I lived in L.A., I was standing next to him at a party. Yeah, he's at tops 5'6", 5'7".
Right.
He's not a big dude either.
So listen, here's just so we can kind of tune everybody in here. So you have a very rich background, Ross, and really what we're going to try to get to, because I know you're a big speaker, I know you're a big trainer, all the stuff that you've learned along the way, we can, and our audience can apply it to sales, persuasion. So that's where we're going to get. So we're going to bounce around here, which is what we normally do. But Ross, tell me a little bit about who you are. How in the world, you're a guy who Tom Cruise played, you're standing next to Sylvester Stallone at parties. Like, who are you, man?
Well, let me get very quickly and make a long story very short. In 1987, up until 1987, and I'm 58 years old now, I was the guy who could not get a girlfriend to save his life. I was the best friend, the buddy, the brother, but couldn't get anywhere. And I was determined to solve that problem. As a result, I got into studying neurolinguistic programming, which is basically, as I would define it, the science of how language structures people's thinking, and from there their decision making, and from their decision making their actions. And there's a big model in neurolinguistic programming that looks at how to use hypnosis in a conversational way. Now, if you're freaked out about the word hypnosis, just think of it in terms of unconscious influence. And what people need to recognize is that it's the unconscious that makes the decisions. And so if you can learn to use your language, and this is my claim that you can learn to do, to first capture and lead your prospects' imagination and emotions, you can create a filter through which they view you, a filter of trust, a filter of fascination, a filter of wanting to decide the way you want them to decide. And my outrageous claim, and it's a bold claim, it's an audacious claim, is if you know how to use language, within 5 to 10 minutes in that initial discussion, you can structure it so people look at you through that window of feeling connected to you, feeling trusting, and then throughout the rest of the conversation, whenever objections come up, you can reframe those objections so they actually become reasons for the prospect to buy from you, to list with you, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what I'd like to discuss today.
No, I think everybody would like to discuss that. Ultimately, I would love to for you to give me an example of that, because I hear what you're saying, but I can't, and I know what NLP is. I can't necessarily, unconscious influence. I mean, can you give me a?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So, there's different prospects. There's different points in the sales process. If someone comes to you, for example, and they want to list a home, and I'm assuming we're speaking to real estate agents, correct?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, 90% of who's listening right now.
Someone comes to you and you want to, or you come to them and you're interested in listing, and they listing their home with you. There's all sorts of possible obstacles that you face. Well, we already have someone, or why should we not? Why should we go with you? Or let us think it over, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So my claim is that what you want to do right away is when you first make that introduction is to use, and this is going to sound a little bit odd, a little bit out there, a little bit strange, but to use something called embedded commands. So embedded commands work like this. Let's say that you want the person to link to you their desire to sell the home. You would say something along the lines, this is going to sound crazy, but you'd say something along the lines of, as you stop and think about the process of getting your home listed and sold for exactly the price or even more that you're looking for, I'm not sure exactly how you'll find that I can be the person that does that for you. But as that's taking place, why don't we have a brief conversation about what it is you're looking for in an agent? Now, that little bit of patter that sounds so much like a mouthful is actually given many embedded commands. And let me define what an embedded command is.
Yeah, please.
If I walk right up to a prospect and I say, I am the best choice for you as a agent or realtor, you will focus on me and you will pick me above everything else. What do you think that person would do?
I don't know. I mean,
They'd kick you out.
Yeah, completely dismiss you. Yeah.
Or completely dismiss you.
Yep.
But instead, and this is something that the father of modern hypnotherapy, Milton Erickson, specialized in, he built a method so that you could put commands and suggestions in what sounds like an ordinary, normal conversation. So, for example, if I wanted someone to think about what they really want in a realtor or an agent, I wouldn't give them that command directly. I'd say, before we get going today, as you stop and think about what it is you really want in an agent, and what is that going to cause them to do? That's going to cause them to dip into their imagination and think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure exactly what comes to mind. And then what you would do, and this sounds crazy, is you would do an anchor. And an anchor means a little bit of gesture where you very slightly point to yourself. And you say, but as that's taking place, I just want to let you know it's my honor to be here to serve you. Now, this sounds like a huge amount of patter, but what are you doing here with this patter? What you're doing is you're setting up in their mind that they're going to go into their imagination. They're going to imagine exactly what they want in an agent. They're going to link that to you, even though you don't specifically know what it is they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And then the entire process that you go through them, they're going to link that connection and trust to you. So what essentially you're doing is you're creating a filter of trust, of fascination, of wanting to be led. And you're putting that filter between you and them. So they look at the entire transaction through that. Here's the problem that most salespeople have.
Well, hold on. I want to stop you, Ross. Sorry, buddy, because I don't want to get too far away from, because this is fascinating, man. So
yes.
So in your example, I want you to stop, right? And the way that you even deliver that, I want you to stop, and you paused, and I want you to imagine, right? So I get that, right? And then now, just 1 second ago, you said you're gonna put these people into a position of them wanting to be led, because you certainly took command. I want you, Ross, to stop. Think about what you want in a podcast host.
Actually, what I said was subtly different. I said, if you were to stop.
Okay.
I didn't say I want you to, because they'll say, "Want? I don't care what you want." I use something I call a weasel phrase, and a weasel phrase is something like, "If you were to." If you were to, if it should happen that you. What a weasel phrase does, and I have a odd technical terminology. A weasel phrase sets it up that the commands slide in. I didn't say I want you to stop. I said, if you were to stop and imagine exactly what it is you're looking for in an agent. I'm not sure exactly what that is or how you put that together as we speak today, but as that's taking place, what I want you to know, it's really my pleasure and my honor to serve you.
Ross,
now, that sounds ridiculous.
No, it doesn't at all. But let me ask some questions here, Ross, because I know that you you do a lot of these. So, but is there a downside? Because I speak that way. If I would say I want you to stop. Hey, Ross, I want you to stop for a second. No. I say that, but is there a downside to me saying that, or should I reframe that?
Well, here's the issue. If you were to say, I want you to stop, a lot of people, that would get their hackles up. And could it work if you do it congruently and strongly enough with a certain type of personality? Yes, it would, but I don't want to take the risk. One of the principles I say is, whatever you can get a person to imagine for themselves will be perceived by them as being their own thought. And one of the best ways to do that is to be vague. And so when I say, if you were to stop and imagine just what it is you want in an agent, I'm not specific. I'm not saying if you were to stop and think about the fact that you want an agent who's reliable, who will be there for you. That may not be what they want.
Right.
I want them to fill in the blank for themselves. So what this way of speaking does, it creates a blank in their mind. They have to dip down into the unconscious, that's the real decision maker, and very quickly come up with their own reasons that they will then automatically apply to you. So it seems to them that you actually fit that, even though you may not fit it at all.
Right. So you said earlier, right? These are embedded commands, and you said
Correct.
Something along the lines, Ross, earlier of, you're putting them in a state of mind. Again, you said something like this, that they want to be led. Now, in terms of leading people, and you're framing yourself as the leader, you're framing yourself as the person taking control. I would imagine that just like regular hypnosis, some people are much more open to that than others. Somebody like me, who's a very, very, like, I'm a straight hard driving entrepreneur. This process, I would imagine, won't work as well on me as some person who is a mid-level manager at somewhere else.
Okay. Let me redefine what I mean by led.
Okay.
I don't mean that I'm going to be the boss and tell you what you should or shouldn't do. I'm simply creating the perception in your mind that I'm someone who you should follow. Now, consciously, if I said that, you would resist. But inside of every human being, no matter how consciously or habitually they may be as an adult walking through an adult world, inside of every human being is that more childlike part that wants to be led, that wants to be convinced. And what we're doing, and you have to decide for yourself the ethics of it, is, in a sense, bypassing the adult personality and dipping into that much more unconscious level that people operated on. You have to understand that 90% of our decisions are made unconsciously anyway. And the unconscious essentially has the maturity and the level of sophistication of a 3 to 5 year old child. So essentially, I wouldn't be butting heads with you. And yes, you're a hard-charging guy, and I understand. But the way I phrase things, you're still going to fill things in with your own imagination. And I never said directly, I want you to let me lead you. Mm-hmm. If I were to say that directly, you'd kick me where the sun don't shine. What I'm doing is using suggestion to create the perception in your mind that, oh, I am a leader you should follow. I never said in that chain of commands, I want you to let me lead you. I would never say that. Rather, I'm giving the perception that I'm a leader because you're imagining for yourself what you want in an agent, and I'm covertly linking it to me. But your point is a valid one and well taken.
And what about, and so, I mean, and again, this is turning out to be a super interesting situation for me, Ross. But so when you are getting into and reaching that person's subconscious mind or unconscious mind, and that, that the maturity level is 3 to 5, that's our reptilian brain, right? Where we're looking for danger. And you said something
No. With all due respect, no. That's just the childlike part of our mind. The reptilian brain is something that goes way deeper than that. Okay. And that's not something that could be reached with trance or hypnotic work.
And I appreciate that. But my question, my thought to you, Ross, is, when if it's not your reptilian brain, but it's our 3 to 5 year old self or brain, does that 3 to 5 year old, some people are more prone to fear and some others are really confident. Can you, if you are tapping into this, could you potentially tap into something that would work against you, right? Because you're talking to this 3 to 5 year old person and they're rooted in fear, right? And then you can't get them off,
Exactly correct. That's exactly why what we call this in NLP is inoculation. And I'll unpack that bit of technical jargon. In the physical world, if you don't want to get a disease, you inoculate first before the disease takes place. Mm-hmm. You get and whatever you think of vaccines, put that controversy aside. You get a vaccine, for example, against smallpox. So should it arise, the problem is already handled. So what we're doing in offering the right chain of suggestions is we're inoculating against that fear response. We're making sure that fear response does not come up. Because, again, let me put it this way. A person will not perceive that you're an authority or an expert on where they should go unless they perceive that you're an authority and expert on where they're already at. Now, if you're specific and try to describe to them where they're already at, you may get it wrong factually. But when you cause them to go inside their imagination and imagine for themselves that you're already the person who understands them, even though you may not know any of the specifics, then that averts away from the response of fear. It will create that trust.
Okay.
And there's a time, here's a key axiom I will offer to your audience. If you get this, you could increase your closings and conversions by 30% or more just by this one principle. And the principle is this, is a good persuader, a good salesperson knows when to be vague and call upon the imagination and when to be specific. Being specific means you explain the structure of the deal, what the numbers are, what the offer is. That's all well and good. But before you do that, you want to capture the unconscious mind and link authority and trust and that need, that childlike desire to believe and be led to you. So then when you present the facts and data, it's more likely to go through the part of the mind that's not so skeptical and so critical. Now, you have to evaluate for yourself whether the tools are fair to use. Absolutely, they can be misused. I'm assuming that it's for a win-win outcome here.
Yeah,
that's the biggest distinction between persuasion and manipulation. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, we're getting there. I have a lot of questions here.
Asked away.
I'm gonna. So you have I already prior to me, let me just talk in real life. For me, right? So we have, on top of this podcast, we have an ad agency, and I put people on radio and television. Now, when somebody comes to me and they go, "Hey, Toby, I'm interested in radio," I have this sort of it's a pitch, but it's really education. I tell them what we do. Now, doing radio, buying that kind of media is very, very challenging, and there's lots of moving pieces.
Yeah.
So I go through, I talked about demographic, I talked about all this stuff, cost per point, and by the time I get done with that, they're so confused by it, and I'm not meaning to confuse them.
That's right. That's right.
That they just go, I give in. Let go.
I give in, meaning I want to sign up, or let me think about it.
No, yeah. Well, they go, I give, right. They give in to the fact, like, okay, if I'm going to do radio, you're my guy. I know that I'm not qualified on my own to do this, so I want you to lead me. So that's what I mean by give up. Like, I got it, but I don't. So I can do all this in one phone call, right? I exude authority. Right. Is with NLP. Is this a long? Can we do this sort of thing in one setting, or does it have to stack on top of one another? Okay.
What I want to say is, your method is good. I think you'd improve your method if you first said something very vague in the beginning to pace the fact that they're going to be confused. If they're going to be confused, if you know for a fact that's going to be a response, then what you have to do is bring it up and tell them the conclusion they should reach from being confused. Some people will think the meaning of being confused is I need to think about it more. Since you know they may be confused, you want to pace that and lead them to the conclusion that being confused absolutely means that you're the expert and they want to go with you. I'm sure some people may not reach that conclusion. The response may be, this is overwhelming, whether they tell you that or not.
They do tell me
think
that.
About it.
Yeah.
So let me just say this. I wasn't planning on bringing this up because it is an advanced technique that I teach in my trainings, but I will on the podcast since you brought it up.
Thanks.
Knowing when to artfully confuse people can be a very, very powerful tool in your persuasion toolkit. Confusing people without deliberateness, with doing it accidentally, is not good. But a little confusion in the beginning can be useful. If you know, for example, like when I give a talk, I'll start by saying, some of the things I'm going to present to you today will seem like what you already know. You'll think, okay, I already know that. Some of what I'm going to present, it may seem a little bit out there, but not too much of a stretch. You'll say, okay, I'm going to try that. The majority of what I'm going to present is going to seem so far out there, so off the wall. At first you might think, this is crazy. There's where I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to get curious when that takes place, because it's the very ideas that stand so far outside of what you're used to thinking and doing that have the best possibility of bringing you the results greater than you're used to having and enjoying. So what have I done there? I've thought, what are the three possible responses people can have to me? What's the one that I better really, really handle? That response of thinking it's nuts and crazy. I'm telling them when that comes up, here's the way you should respond to it.
Yeah.
So tying this back to your point, if you were to say something like, and you really got me on the spot here, so I'm just rolling this off the tip of my tongue and the top of my head. If you were to say, as we're going along today and I'm explaining this to you, there's a lot here, and should at any point you experience any confusion, that's only a sign that reaching for clarity to help you, that's only a sign that reaching for clarity by asking the right questions is an easy thing to do. So what you can do is take that confusion and let them know, oh, I'm feeling confused. That must mean that he's the authority. I should trust him more.
Right.
So the idea is, if you know a response that someone's going to have, what you want to do is inoculate against it by bringing it up and suggesting what it's going to mean to them when that takes place. For example, if you have an offer on the table, someone may experience a little hesitation. They're not sure. That's just natural. It's a big ticket, big money item. So what you might want to do is say, as you're reviewing this, I'm not sure exactly which parts you'll really find really, really attractive to you that you want to take action. But as that's taking place, I just want to let you know, please feel free to ask any questions to allow you to know you're going to make a great decision today. So what does that do? It means anytime they ask questions, it doesn't mean they're skeptical. It just means, oh, I'm asking these questions because I do want to make the decision, and I want his help in clarifying.
Yeah.
What you're doing is converting skepticism and mistrust as the reasons why they're asking the questions into, oh, I want to buy. I'm asking these questions not because I'm cynical. I'm asking these questions because I need some more clarification. You can actually change the unconscious meaning people give to bringing up objections and questions. Instead of their thinking, oh, I'm objecting, my objection means I don't want to do this, unconsciously their interpretation is, oh, it's not even really an objection. I want to do this. I trust this person. I just need some clarity. Now, what would it mean to you if you could do that in your business? If you could take people who object or ask questions because they're cynical and don't trust you, and turn the very meaning of asking those questions or making those objections, that the meaning the person attaches to that is, oh, I do really want to go forward with the deal. What would that do for your bottom line and your numbers? I think it would do it great. It
would do a ton of good, because here's a situation. This is we don't need to go down and talk about this, but buying this type of media is expensive, right? Radio and television can be very expensive, and I need, before I onboard anybody, I need to know that they completely trust me 100%. And here's what I do, for better or for worse, Jeffrey. I do my thing. I build a little relationship with them, and if I sense any kind of hesitation on them, or that they don't completely trust me, you know what I do? I just go away. I'm just like, I'm not your guy. You go do it on your own.
Ooh.
And, right.
You're losing a lot of business.
I'm losing a lot of revenue, and you know what? And here's what I hope. I'll tell you. My hope is that they go, oh crap! All right, I can't do it. I'm gonna, I need to change my attitude as a prospect, right? And I'm hoping that they'll come back with a different viewpoint, a different attitude. And many times when I'll do this by email, I'll commonly get an email back from them going, listen, Toby, look, no offense, I didn't at all mean to say that I don't think your system or model works. It's just this or this or this. And many times, like a jerk that I can be, I don't even answer those questions. I'm like, okay, I'll wait till they get back in line, and then I'll onboard them. But, Ross, do you know how many times that happens? Like 10%. Yes. So I have 90% of the people walking out the door, and the people that I sell the stuff to, it's there's not a whole lot of them, right? That can spend $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 a month.
Right. Of course not.
So I got to get better at that.
Let me make you an odd offer, which I've never before done for a podcast host. Let me give you an hour. We can arrange it. Just me and you, not on the podcast, of private training. I'll give you an hour of training. We'll arrange it by Skype, and then you can report back to me and report to your audience how it's improved. I'm willing to bet I can improve your closings by 20%.
I would love it, man. I would.
No charge. You have my personal information. I will give you priority. We'll do like an hour to 90 minutes, because it's what I'm saying is outrageous. It sounds different, I think, than what most people hear. But if I can prove it by working with you, and you go, yep, these are the numbers, I think it's a good credentializer, and I know I can. You would make the ideal client. I typically work with people who are already successful and high net worth. I don't want to drag people who are still struggling to even make a sale.
No, that's me.
I'm happy to work with you. Please take me up.
I will. I'm done. I will absolutely. So let me ask you this, okay? So you're going to help tune me up, and I have no doubt that you can, just from the 29 minutes we spent on the phone. But when we communicate with people, Ross, and you know this, when we communicate, really, only it's 30%. And you have better numbers than I do. 30% is verbal. But 70% is our body language. We communicate more with how we hold ourselves and position ourselves. How does that body language impact our verbal?
Let me address this.
Okay.
Let me address this, because a lot of what you just said is commonly accepted, but inside of that, a lot of it is just not true. I want you to think about this critically. How do you measure, and what units of measurement do you measure responsiveness? There's no unit of measurement. It's not like inches or how can you say percentage of communication? Communication is not measured in any kind of measurable scientific unit like grams, pounds, etc. So when they
That's true.
quantify things like that and say 70% is nonverbal, well, 70% specifically is measured by what? I get the general point. If you take it as a metaphor, that 70%, here's the distinction I'd make. There's digital and there's analog. Digital are the actual words you say, and then analog are the things that vary along a range. I'll give you a metaphor. There are some lights that you either flick them on or off. There's some lights that have a dimmer switch. You can go from dim all the way to bright. Analogs are things that vary along a range, like voice tempo, voice volume, voice tonality, voice intonation. Those are analogs. Digital are the words you specifically say. I would say it's 50-50, not 70-30. Just as a general metaphor, it's 50-50. The specific words you say are extremely important if you want to be hypnotic. But then again, so is your tonality, so is your posture. So I don't agree that it's 70-30 at all. In my experience, it's more like 50-50, and a whole lot of that has to do with how you use your voice as opposed to how you hold yourself or how you stand. I know that's counterintuitive and goes against conventional wisdom, but it's been my direct experience and the direct experience of thousands of my students that's how it works. Now, there's one exception. The one exception is if you're a public speaker. If you're a public speaker, there is a certain body language that you have to convey. But if you're not doing public speaking, I think, and I do train public speaking as well, but if you're not doing public speaking, I really don't think it's quite as important. There are some books that you can get that are much better than I could possibly teach. It's not something that I'm an expert in.
Okay. Yeah. No. And look, I would buy that to a point for sure. And I think that with the right words, right. So if I'm speaking with you, and let's assume that I can you give me a little coaching and I can speak in the way that you speak, and I get to a point or around a point that I want you to say yes to. I want you to agree to, and I'm explaining it to you, and my head's bouncing up and down. Right. I'm nodding while I'm telling you this.
You don't want to do that.
You don't
want to do that. No, that's too obvious. It's like the yes ladder.
Wow. Okay.
Wouldn't you agree? Yeah, people are used to it. They've seen it. This is another reason that I'm proud of my work, because what used to work no longer does. People are sophisticated. They know it. They know the tagline questions. They know the yes ladders. They know the head nods. They know, comment on the trophy on the wall, get them to talk about the personal interest. People, number one, we're living in the age of Twitter and Tinder, if you're into that, and Facebook and instant messaging. People don't have time to pay attention to that. They're ADD and scattered and focused. More importantly, they've seen it before. They're sophisticated. Doesn't work. So I would say that I talk about what I call the subtle head nod.
Okay.
The subtle head nod is a very, very small movement of the head that's only picked up unconsciously. And if I see them do that very subtle head nod back, then I know I've got them, or at least I'm on the path to it. So I teach this. It's the unconscious subtle head nod, because here's the thing. Here's another principle I want people to get. The unconscious mind is not influenced by big, giant movements. It's influenced by micro movements and little small things, because that's the job of the unconscious mind. The job of the unconscious mind is to pick up those small things and small signals that the conscious mind is just too dumb or preoccupied with to notice. So you always want to make your movements small, not a big hand. People are going to look at you like, what? Is he a bauble toy? No. Counterintuitively, what I say is do what I call the subtle head nod. I also, frankly, teach this to my students who want to learn how to pick up women, is, make everything subtle. Subtly nod your head. Make your gestures subtle. Subtle is significant. Subtle is powerful.
But help me understand this, Ross. So I can get that. I can buy it. But how does that tie into the fact that, when we're talking and we're reaching people, and using our embedded commands, and that unconscious mind you said is the 3 to 5 year old self, is the 3 to 5 year old self at the unconscious level, is that 3 to 5 year old person sophisticated enough to pick up and sense those micro movements?
Absolutely. Think about it. When a child is 3, 4, 5 years old, that child has to understand what's going on around him or her in the world, and their verbal capability is quite limited. So they have to be able to pick up on unconscious cues. They have to know when their parents are accepting, when they're angry. Is their environment dangerous? Is it safe to go forward? Is it safe to explore? Should I go backwards? So yes, absolutely. Children this is the reason why magicians will tell you they don't want to work in front of young kids, because the young kids cannot be misdirected. The kids catch them. Adults are easily fooled. Talk to any magician. My nephew is a magician. He has his own I'm bragging. He has his own 700-seat theater in Maui dedicated to his shows, and he'll tell you, really young children, 5 or younger, they're just too good at catching things. So,
that's interesting.
Does that address your question?
It does. Absolutely does. Absolutely. So let me ask you this. So I went to UCSD. I graduated with a degree in sociology and religious studies. Those are my 2 degrees. Now, one of the things, one of the things that I loved in sociology is this kind of stuff, right? Like how to influence people, because I've always been a sales guy. Now, one thing, there's an experiment. I'll try to say this really briefly, but I'm sure you might be aware of it. There's an experiment when we used to have phone booths. They went in. These researchers, they left a dime, when you could use a dime to make a phone call. A dime in the phone booth. They walked out, waited till somebody came in and came out. Now I don't know how many people they asked, but they asked this question. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just in there. I think I left my dime in there. Did you see it? Or something to that effect. Now, one group, they just asked it to, and 80% of those people said, no, I didn't see a dime in there. Now, the other group, they asked that same question, but they touched them. Even imperceptibly touched them. And some crazy high number, like 90%, said, oh, yeah, I did see your dime. Here it is. So how can you use those sorts of things in conjunction?
That's making, I get your question. That's making my point for me. First of all, it was a very subtle touch.
Yes.
It wasn't like clap them on the shoulder.
No.
I'm willing to believe.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a subtle touch. Subtle things, like a subtle touch. Not like, they teach you, give them that firm handshake and wrap your hand around their wrist and that sort of thing. I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't do that. But no, everyone hates it. It's like everyone knows it. It's such a gimmick. Like, please, like I said, the old stuff just doesn't work the way it used to. So I would say yes, use it, and this is something I do teach, is when to do very subtle touches, very light touches. Some people don't like to be touched at all. It's something you need to do. You need to do what we call in NLP calibrate. You need to test the individual very covertly and very small to see how they're responsive to something. But yes, my answer would be combine the verbal techniques with not just a subtle touch, but also what I could call the self point.
Hold on, wait, Ross. Ross, I want to hear that, but before you do that, I want to say one of the things I think we're going to get off of this touching bit. I was at a conference a year ago, and this guy I had met before. I wanted to meet him again. I walked up to him, or we had a conversation, and it was a good conversation. It was the 3 of us there, and we all enjoyed it. And I was leaving, and when he shook this is on the handshake. When he put his hand out to shake my hand, most people will put their hand out and their palm is, I don't know, pointing to the straight left, right? Like it's like a car door.
Correct.
Now, what this guy did to me, dude, and I registered this. This is proving your point, because I registered it. It stopped me for a second, and then I registered it afterwards. He literally put his hand flat as if he was giving me something, and he spread out his fingers and he was saying, "Hey, shake my hand." And he was like offering me something, and I for a second I was like, "What?" And I shook his hand. I was like, "What was?" I just knew there was something unique about what just happened there. And I said goodbye, walked away, and I figured it out. I'm like, "Oh, he had his hand. He was like offering me something." It was. And I, ever since then, I've shook everybody's hand exactly like that. It was an amazing. It was like it was a feeling. It was a connection. It was weird.
Right.
So anyhow,
and it was a subtle thing.
It was subtle.
It was a subtle.
Yeah.
Subtle is significant. That ties back to the point of the difference between using embedded commands and embedded suggestions versus directly telling someone what response you want them to have. Subtle works. Subtle is powerful. Subtle subtle has power.
I love it. So
subtle is significant.
So the finger point, how do you use that? Because I think that's what you're just getting into.
Very, very simply is if, for example, I can tell you what it isn't first, because it's hard to describe a behavior over a podcast since people can't see me. But I'll tell you what it's not. It's not like you're calling in an airstrike and like vigorously pointing to yourself. It would just be, you have your hand put your hand to your chest and very small micro movement, tap your chest. Very, very small movement. The other thing you could do is, another way to do this is if you have a piece of jewelry, just tap on the piece of jewelry, that sort of thing. It's what we call setting a physical anchor. And the subtle point, again, it's such a small movement that consciously it's not picked up on. This is something tying back to the beginning of the conversation that Milton Erickson was the hypnotist that Bandler and Grinder, the founders of NLP, studied. And Erickson was a master at doing these subtle nonverbal things to activate the unconscious mind of his patients. He learned that art of physical subtlety. So you want to keep everything so subtle that the conscious mind doesn't pick it up. If the movement, generally speaking, if the movement is really large, people will either catch it and or it will activate the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the part of the nervous system that's responsible for fight and flight, which you don't want to do. That's the neurobiology of it. That's the science behind it.
And what when I tap my chest or tap my jewelry, as you said, in a very subtle way, what exactly am I anchoring? The fact that I'm the guy?
The suggestions that you're giving. You're anchoring.
Oh,
so
okay.
If I say to someone, when you stop and think about what it is you really want in an agent, I'm not sure what that is, but as you continue to imagine that, and I would just subtly tap myself, I'm happy that I'm here to be of service to you, and do that subtle head nod.
Got it.
So what you've done is, did you get it?
Yeah, I got it. All right, so larger movements will activate your parasympathetic fight or flight system.
Right. This is. I learned this through an insomnia cure. I used to suffer from 2.5 years of insomnia, and I tried all sorts of things. And then I picked up something where they said, just make the smallest little movements of your finger. When you breathe in, lift the finger, and when you exhale, let it drop. But make the movements so small that someone would have to be an inch away to see them. So when you make those small little movements, it turns off the mind that's constantly churning, and the parasympathetic system, which is responsible for fight and flight. Excuse me, it's the other way around. I apologize. The sympathetic nervous system is responsible for fight and flight. The parasympathetic is designed to calm you down. So those small movements turn on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is designed to calm you down. That's the neurobiology of it. That's the science behind it.
So large movements will activate the sympathetic fight or flight. Now,
correct.
We've established that tonality and rhythm, the way we use our voice, is important. It can't with my voice. I'm sure you can tell. Like, if you met me in the real world, I can be loud, and I'm very much a big movement guy. That's just, if you saw what I was doing right now, like, all the way through this, it's just how I move. That's how I talk. Could my voice being big and shifting from ups and downs, could that on itself activate somebody's sympathetic fight or flight? No. Okay.
In fact, being able to modulate your voice, which is what you do, is what we call prosody. Prosody in voice is what makes people's voice melodious, and it makes people want to listen to them. For example, monotone. If I spoke like this to you throughout the whole interview and said, when you give suggestions, no one wants to hear it. But, one of the things I do is I know how to pause in a way that creates that response potential, so people want to hear what I say carefully. Now, did you notice what I did in there? I put at the end of it, I put in a command, hear what I say carefully. So I created curiosity and response potential by pacing my voice in a certain way. So you were sort of mentally leaning forward, and then I slid in the suggestion, listen carefully. So all these tools tie and work together. So your voice, there's nothing wrong with your voice. You've got a great voice. One thing I would suggest to you is learning the art of when to slow down
Yeah.
when you really want to create a little more response potential. That's part of the training I'll give you.
Yeah, I'll tell you, my brain, that is a huge negative in the way I talk, because my brain works way faster than my mouth, and sometimes I'm trying to get something out and I will literally I'll stutter. But going back to you using that pause.
Yeah, we can work with that too.
Okay.
We can slow you down with that too.
I want to ask you something, because I thought I heard something, and maybe I did, maybe I imagined it, but when you were saying, I want you to listen to what I say, and you paused very carefully. Now, I thought I heard you go like that. I thought I heard you snap. Did you snap? Did you give me an anchor?
No.
Okay.
No. In fact, what I'm doing is just I'm sort of playing with a thumb drive here, which I shouldn't be doing during an interview.
Okay. All right. No. This is it's absolutely fascinating. We have to wrap up. Let me just ask you a couple quick rapid fire questions before we let you go, Ross.
Sure.
What's something we covered a lot of ground? What's something I didn't ask you that I should have asked you? Like what's one really important thing that we just didn't?
I would say, and this is a whole other training, but I would say, what is the best way to go about establishing a realistic motivation and an informed enthusiasm? Because we know sales can be very up and down. If you depend on your feelings of the moment or the events of the day, you can't create a vision that pulls you towards your goals. How do you do that? And my quick answer, I did an entire mind frame training on this afternoon. My quick answer is take on a learning frame. And the learning frame is, I'm interested in the sale, I'm invested in my skills. The distinction between interested and invested is this. In a breakfast of bacon and eggs, the chicken is interested, the pig is invested. I hope you get my metaphor.
Got it. Yeah, totally. Okay.
Yeah, so I would say, the one thing you haven't asked me is about mindset, but that's an entirely different discussion. That's a weekend-long training.
That is, man. And you know what? Mindset is so everything, right?
It's crucial.
It's and I think it's just the one line I will say about it is, I think it's so critical to develop an abundance mindset, and not those people who have scarcity and live in fear, they're never going to be as successful as they possibly could be with that kind of mindset.
No, absolutely not.
So listen, I don't know. So we always ask for a book recommendation. Now here's the setup that I normally give. I know you're a little bit of a different guy, so answer however you feel so inclined. But I'm an aspiring agent. I have $25. What book should I go buy right now?
Oddly enough, I will give you a recommendation that has nothing to do with sales. It's called The Science of Enlightenment. It's about developing a meditation practice for the modern, everyday, skeptical person who doesn't believe in it, because meditation develops the core skill that's behind everything else, which is focus. Focus is, if you can't focus, no other skill will work. Focus is the baseline skill that will improve everything. So, and he's also my meditation teacher. But can I tell people how to stay in touch with me?
Yeah. Want to? Well, hold on. That's going to be the last thing that we cover here.
Sure. My apologies.
No. So everybody, if you want to read this book, The Science of Enlightenment.
The Science of Enlightenment.
How Meditation Works. Right. By Shinzen Young on Amazon.com. It's 4.7 out of 5. Get this book. You can get a free copy using our link. Go to audibletrial.com/superagentslive. Now, the one question before we wrap up for good, Ross, is this. Yes. Do you have a daily habit that you think has contributed to your success?
Yes, I meditate.
And do you...
I meditate.
So I use Headspace for meditation. Do you have an app?
I use what my teacher Shinzen has taught me. He is the meditation what Einstein was the physics. So I just follow what my teacher says. Okay.
So let me ask you this. I'm going to get this book. Is this book one that I need the physical copy, or can I listen to it on Audible and get the same?
It doesn't matter. It's
okay.
Just one depends on how you like to consume the content.
Okay, Okay, some books you definitely need pages. Okay, all right. So this is the deal, Ross. I always encourage my audience, if they've got anything out of this, reach out to you and say thank you. Where can people find more about you? Where can people connect with you?
Yeah. Yeah, here's what to do. If you're interested in having me do private coaching with you, as I'm going to do with you, sir, or you're interested in having me train your organization or having me come and speak to your organization, simple and easy to book a Skype consult with me. Just go to consultross.com. Consultross.com. You can't make it easier than that, and I'd be delighted to talk to you. And I really want to make good on my offer to train you, sir. I can give you an hour to 90 minutes, so make sure you contact me. We'll calendar that for the beginning of 2017.
Absolutely, man. And I got to tell you, Ross, I'm honored that you've never ever offered that to anybody else. And I'm either interesting enough that you offered it to me, or I need so much help that you offered it to me.
No, I think you're, look, I want to train winners, people who are already on the path. And you already know, to me, it's a challenge. How do I take someone who's already 90% of the way there and blow their mind? Give them a holy, I'm not going to say the word, a holy S experience. So they go, wow, I was great. I had no idea how much more I could do. That's what I want to do with you. That's my ideal client. People who are struggling, God bless you, but people who are already on the path, those are the people who I crave to work with.
I'm excited, man. I thank you. I'm looking forward to it. All right. Well, hey, Ross, I will kick off the thank you train. Thank you, man. I know that you're busy. I know you're always on the TV, radio. Everybody wants a slice of your attention. So I appreciate you taking time out and sharing with me and my audience.
It's my honor and pleasure. You've been a great host.
Thank you, man. All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye now.
Yep.
Let's go.